Today, we're going to be talking about a new release, not just any new release, a Sara Cate new release. She just started a brand new series. It's been so long since we've just been in the Salacious Players Club world, but now she is starting what I believe is going to be a 3-book series, the Goode Brothers series with Antihero. This book was about Sage and Adam, who on the surface could not be more opposite, okay? She is hot pink hair, covered in tattoos, piercings everywhere, lives on the wild side, owns a sex club, and he is khakis, polos, pastor's kid, sermon writer, devotional author. Like, you would think they were meant to be. And on the surface, it might come across as like an opposites attract romance, but at its core, I don't believe that's really what it was. Sara Cate always does a phenomenal job, especially in her Salacious Players Club series, of giving us the why, the psychology behind who these characters are, what they've gone through to make them who they are today, and what attracts them to the kinks that they have. For Adam, he's a full-grown adult and didn't even realize until he met Sage that he may have a little bit of a degradation kink. And she didn't realize until she met Adam that under the right circumstances, with the right amount of dominance and trust, she might like to be degraded. The book starts out and Adam is about 12 years old, and him and his whole family are getting ready on Sunday for the grand opening of what will eventually become like the most intense mega church in all of Texas. Maybe even in the United States. I can't exactly remember. Definitely in Texas. And his dad grows to be like a celebrity pastor. Present day, Adam is going to his favorite little diner in town for breakfast, and it's crazy busy. While he's waiting for a table, he sees this like spunky little interesting bubblegum pink-haired goddess come in, and he's very drawn to her. He's very curious about her right away, especially because she's just so different from any girl he's ever like interacted with or been involved with. Like I said, he's like a good little church boy and always has been. And she has just gotten off like an entire graveyard shift at her sex club called Pink that she co-runs, but technically doesn't co-own. Her boyfriend, Brett, what's that name? Brett. He technically owns the sex club, and they've been dating for about 4 years. So she is starving, and they say her table is going to be about 45 minutes, and she's like, I might not make it that long. So when they announce that his chair is ready at the bar, he says, she can have my seat. He says, hey, would you like to, take my chair? And she says, oh my God, thank you so much. She goes, she has her breakfast, her disgusting scrambled eggs covered in ketchup, but then a spot opens up right next to her and they end up getting seated next to each other for breakfast. They hang out, they chat, and he's very surprised by how just like interested he is and like how easygoing their conversation is and how engaged he feels, and he doesn't really know what to make of that. Adam, now that he's an adult, everything he does is for his dad, okay? He wants to make him proud. He writes all of his sermons. He wrote a book about what it's like to be his son. He wrote a devotional. Like, everything is just to uplift the image of the Goode family. And he eventually wants to take over the church as lead pastor, and his dad is getting up there in age, and he thinks any day now. So when his dad calls him into his office one day, he's like, this is it. This is my dad. He's going to be tossing the torch on, or passing the torch on. That's not what's happening, okay? His dad, in a very roundabout way, fires him from writing his sermons and says, hey, like, people are starting to notice that it's not really my writing, that it's more yours. And his dad doesn't like that his son is maybe getting a little bit more recognition and attention from him. So he fires him and says, I'm gonna have this other dude start writing my sermons, but this is gonna be great because you should just like write another book. I think that could be, your calling right now, what the Lord has for you. Just total religious manipulation. While him and his dad are kind of having this argument, he notices this strange piece of paper on his dad's desk. And while his dad's back is turned, he looks, takes a quick picture of it, and after examining it further later, he finds out that it was the deed to Pink, the sex club that his dad has preached about, like, trying to take down since, like, his church started. He was literally encouraging the congregation to give extra tithe towards, like, furthering this mission and funding this mission to take down the sex club. But he's like, why does my dad have the deed? Now Sage, on the other end, she's doing like all the business and bookkeeping for the club. And one day she notices, wow, we've been making a lot of extra money lately. And her boyfriend is like, yeah, we've just been selling a lot of liquor, which right away she's annoyed by, because they're supposed to have a 2-drink limit on everybody to keep things safe, sane, consensual, all that good stuff. And he just doesn't give a shit. He's like, liquor is where we make most of our money, so I'm not going to cap people. And that really annoys her because he doesn't listen to anything she says. She wants their sex club to not be like this greedy, disgusting place full of like seedy people, but she wants it to be high end, like Salacious Players Club. But he just will not take her advice. And then as she's running the numbers, she notices an extra 50 grand in their bank account. She's like, what is this? Where did this come from? And he ends up coming clean that he borrowed some money from someone, not a bank, but from an individual, so that he could hire someone to come in to consult in making the club better. She's pissed because for years she's been giving him advice about how to make the club better that he hasn't listened to. And she's like, now you're gonna make us in debt? Like, you didn't even talk to me as your business partner, but you're gonna borrow 50 grand from someone who you won't even tell me who to hire someone to consult? She was pissed, very, very hurt. That same night, Adam is very distraught by getting fired from his writing position and finding out that his dad owns the deed to the sex club. So he decides to go check it out. He heads over there, he gets shit-faced at the bar, and then ends up seeing Sage walking through and is like, what? So he follows her and is like, why? She recognizes him from the breakfast place. She's like, hello, what are you doing here? This is the last place I'd expect you to be, even though she gave him the business card for the club. She's like, he's never gonna come. I'm never gonna see him again. It's like, why does my dad have the deed to your club? And things click together. She's like, what? Brett gave the deed of our club to Pastor Goode. His name's like Truett, something terrible, Truett Goode. And because they're in the office, he happens to see on little security camera in one of the VIP rooms, his dad going down on like a 20-something-year-old girl on a table, and he's like, what the fuck, Dad? He goes in there to confront him, and his dad continues to show his true colors, where he has security hold him down while he beats the ever-loving shit out of his own son, and then threatens him and says, you can't tell anyone about this, and it's like, this would destroy your mother, blah, blah, blah. And he's so in his head that no matter how angry he gets at his dad throughout this whole book, no matter how far his dad pushes him, he just can't fight back. He's like just been brainwashed to where even though in his head at times he goes, I want to punch him in the face so bad, and literally is like shaking, he like his body physically rejects retaliating against him. Sage obviously dumps her loser boyfriend after finding out all that drama. A couple weeks go by, and she ends up tracking Adam down at the same diner that they met for breakfast that one time. And she says, you know what? I think we should make a revenge plan to get back at my boyfriend and your dad for being the worst. And he's intrigued by the idea. A bunch of back and forth. At first, he rejects it and says, no, this isn't going to work. But then he gets pushed a little bit further by his dad and decides, you know what, we're doing this. And the way that they do it is still a little confusing to me. It doesn't feel like the smartest plan they could have come up with, but I liked it for the plot nonetheless. The plan was basically they didn't want to directly affect their dad's reputation and play dirty in that regards, especially because he really cares about his mom. She's just a total sweetheart, and he didn't want his mom to become like collateral damage in any of that. But the plan they come up with is to basically make amateur sex tapes and put them on the internet on this like porn site and make them go as viral as possible, so that hopefully ruining his own reputation would affect his dad's like credibility in, you know, his circles or whatever. Oh, I also totally forgot to mention, the night that his dad beat him up at the club, him and Sage both got tossed out, and she took him back to her place because she didn't know where he lived. She needed to tend to his wounds. And they ended up banging for the first time, okay? It was hot, it was quick, it was dirty, and it was his first sort of emotional response was to be a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more degrading, and afterwards they were like, wow, that was really hot for both of us. But then he was immediately overcome with guilt and then just like left. So then that becomes the revenge plot. They try to make these dirty videos in various locations, and they try to make them go as viral as possible, which they do. The dad will see them, the people in the church community will see them, and then hopefully her ex-boyfriend will see them, and he'll just be overcome with jealous, and that will be like what she's getting out of it. And not only that, they actually decide to fake date. So he's taking her to family dinners and parties, special events, galas, like any place where he's going to be around his family or in the public eye. He wants her on his arm, rubbing it in his dad's face, especially because she's connected to the club, and he wants his dad to just sweat knowing that both of them are there and they know what he's been up to. Even though in their videos they're not actually having sex, they definitely make it look like they are, and the chemistry between them is so hot that every time they film a video, it's just like foreplay, building up to when eventually they cannot take it anymore. They fuck again for real. It eventually does become real. They become like really good friends. He's spending all of his nights over at her place. He has become integrated in her little like dirty book club with a bunch of her friends at the laundromat. And it's just so sweet. And she helps him work through a lot of why especially the videos are degrading in nature, and he fights a lot of that throughout the book, feeling like, if I like this, I am a bad person, I am a bad man. And she has to sort of help him realize, in this dynamic where we're both consenting adults, I am saying, I don't know why I like this, you don't know why you like this, but we're good people who in this environment are okay treating each other this way, and it gets us off. So like, what's the problem? And having him realize the act itself isn't the problem at the end of the day. It's his identity crisis with what that says about who he is. And he doesn't really know who he is because he thought his dad was a good man, and he modeled his entire life off of what his dad's life was and what his dad wanted for his life. And if that's a total sham, if his dad is a shitty person, does that automatically mean that he's a shitty person? Sara Cate is so good at giving us the why. Like, why do these people have natural inclinations towards these specific kinks? What's their backstory? What leads them to want these types of things, have these desires? And I gobble it up. I gobble it up every single time. There was only one scene where the degradation felt like a little skirt for me, but it was like a learning moment where they were trying to make a video and he was just being really sweet and intimate, and she's like, I love this and I love this part of you, but that's not what the people want to see for our videos on this website. So I'm gonna need you to rough it up a little bit. I need you to slap me in the face and spit in my mouth. And he's like, I don't think I can do that. I don't want to slap you in the face. And she's like, I want you to. And I think deep down you want to. And he like struggles with it so hard until she's finally able to push him far enough to where he flips a switch. And then he does. He slaps her in the face and he spits on her face. The video comes out super hot. People are loving it, but he really forces aftercare after that scene. And she, you know, is so hyped up from the situation. It's like, no, like, I don't want your tenderness. And he's like, the scene is over. You're getting my tenderness. If you force me to do that, I'm forcing you to do this. And it's sort of great because he almost is like training her to accept his aftercare while she's training him to like accept his rough edges. And I just think that's really sweet. But then Sara Cate does a really good job of giving us like a what not to do example for that whole scenario. So later on, Adam and Sage, they go to the sex club and they have a little scene together in the voyeur hall. It was really hot. He like tied her up and like went downtown on her kitty. But then they got into a fight in the parking lot and her ex-boyfriend Brett came out and was like, we have a problem here. And Adam just bounces. So then she goes into the club with Brett and they're kind of talking about, you know, what went down between their relationship in his office. And then he starts trying to put the moves on her and she's like, no, I don't think so. And then he slaps her in the face and tries degrading her. And she full up is like, stop, push on the brakes. He's like, what? Like, I saw the videos. You like that? No. It felt really good because it was able to see how a guy saw that happening and just thought, oh, I can just treat a girl like that. There is a level of trust and consent that is required to make something like that a positive experience for both people who have inclinations towards those kinks. And he didn't do it right at all. She did not consent and she didn't want it. And they didn't communicate about it beforehand. And she kind of explained that to him. She's like, you're an idiot. You own a sex club. You should know these things. But this is why this place is a total shit show. And I'm glad I'm not a part of it anymore. It's officially over. When she heads back to her apartment, Adam is waiting there for her because he wants to apologize for leaving. And she explains to him everything that happened with Brett. He is furious and he leaves in the middle of the night to basically beat the shit out of him when he comes out of work, and he does, and it's the first time he's ever allowed himself to let out his aggression in a violent way. And it kind of opens up something inside of him, and eventually he and Sage go to a party that his family is at that is like his mom is getting an award for just being a really great person. So him and Sage are there together. It's kind of like one of their first events where they're like fully together. They're not doing the videos for their dad anymore. The revenge plot is over. He's just like, I'm in love with you and I want to be with you. And then the dad gets drunk and he sort of blows a fuse. He lets her go to the bathroom for like a couple minutes by herself, and the dad like corners her there and literally tries to strangle her to death. Okay. And he comes in right in the nick of time. He like almost crushed her windpipe, so they had to call an ambulance. She gets rushed to the hospital, and he almost, you know, beats up his dad, but they call the police and he just decides, I'm just going to expose my dad in front of everyone and he'll get his comeuppance. So he does that. And then he goes to the hospital. He's with Sage. He has this sort of internal struggle where it's like, I did all this because I roped her into my life and she would have been safe and maybe she would be better off without me. And him trying to decide how to move forward. His dad goes to jail but ends up getting bailed out while he's waiting his sentencing. I think he ends up getting some prison time. He tries to convince Adam to leave Sage because he wants to leave him his mega church and says, I want to leave it in the family. You're the only one who I trust to take it over, but it's never going to work and it's never going to thrive if she's on your arm. So I will sign you over the deed to the club under the conditions that you leave her. And he thinks about it and then he says, no, I'm not going to leave her dad. But his dad ends up giving him the deed to the club anyway. So he gives it to Sage. They have this little back and forth struggle towards the end about like how they're going to make their lives work cohesively, because he, you know, still has a big passion for church and community. And he still like has his faith. And he still eventually does want to have his own church. He just is not sure what it would look like in comparison to like how his dad did things. But they work through it and they decide to be together. They still sometimes make dirty videos for the internet just because they like to. And their relationship is super cute. He calls her Peaches all the time, which I loved. It was like such a cute nickname. And like I said, besides like the face slapping, I felt like the degradation was not that hardcore. It was mainly just like some dirty talk that maybe was a little bit more intense than some people might care for. I was fine with it. I'm a praise girly, and I was still like, this book, if I hadn't read some really degrading books, would have made me think, maybe I do have a degradation kink. But I know I don't. I'm okay with like some derogatory terms every once in a while in the right context with the right person, consensually. Okay. But yeah, I'm a praise girly through and through. I gave this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. I definitely ended up liking it more than I thought I would. I knew I was going to really like it, but I think because I thought, how many times can I say degradation in a video? I think because I thought the degradation was going to maybe be a little bit more intense, I didn't think I was going to end up giving it more than a 4, but I did. I really liked it. And then it was like maybe a 3.5 on the spice scale. It was good. It was spicy. I enjoyed it. Would highly recommend. Pick up Antihero. It is on Amazon, KU, and Audible, okay, for you audiobook loving girlies like me. Oh, I also wanted to add as a note, if you at all come from a religious background, I think Sara Cate, in my opinion, did a good job of not making this a story about a man struggling with his faith and with what he believes is right and wrong in the eyes of God. It was more about him realizing that so much of his faith and so much of his self-worth wasn't coming from his faith. It was coming from his like belief in his father, who was just a terrible person. So then I almost appreciated how he had to overcome that sort of idolization of his father. And then he almost like became more solid in his own faith afterwards, because he was coming to terms with what he truly believes is right and wrong, and like what he feels is right in his relationship with, you know, him and his faith. And, you know, the dynamic between him being in a relationship with someone who maybe doesn't share his same faith. So anyways, everyone I think may have different opinions on that, but I personally appreciated how it was executed. Do with that information what you will. Sorry if that was chaotic. I could be all over the place sometimes. Thank you so much for watching this video. Make sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Hit that little notification bell so that you don't miss out on any of my spoiler-filled book reviews or just amazingly charismatic bookish content. Happy reading!